Throughout the years, fashion has influenced the way women are viewed. Women's fashion has gone through many changes and reoccurrences, from the 1900s being very covered up, to the 1930s flashy flapper dresses, the 1950s full skirts, below the knee dresses in the 1960s, 1970s disco wear and bell-bottom pants, the bright colors of the 1980s, and the high-waisted pants and the grunge of the 1990s. Fashion has always been a huge statement for women.
As fashion communication and export dried up between Paris and New York, it was necessary for America to find its own talent and young designers. These designers created chic styles that Manhattan women embraced. This was the real start of original American fashion produced nationally and covered everything from clothes to hats.
In the 1900s, women had multiple outfits for a day. They would start with a morning outfit. This was usually a conservative blouse with a gored skirt and was worn with a light jacket. This would be worn to casual events. Next was the afternoon outfit, which was a pastel attire. At night, women would change into their tea outfit, which was for lounging. By 8, you would change once again, and then once more before sleeping. Each time a woman changed outfits, her corset was retied in an effort to appear slimmer.
How can you leave me? Can't you see my tears? So listen while I say, after you gone.
No matter what women were wearing, the goal was to show off a tightly corseted torso. To make the dresses have such a tight fit, most women had to go to a dressmaker that would do it for them. These dressmakers put expensive fabrics right around the edges and created a neckline using lace or beaded trim. And there was always a girdle, or a belt around the waist to show off the woman's slim figure.
Later in the 1920s, which is referred to as the Roaring Twenties or the era of the flapper, waist size was not as highlighted. One of the most iconic fashion styles of the 20s was the cloche hat and the flapper dress. Clothing changed with women's changing rules in the 1930s, particularly with the idea of freedom for women.
Although older members of society continued to wear conservative dresses, younger women now made sportswear into the greatest change in post-war fashion. The tubular dresses of the teens changed to a similar silhouette that now supported shorter skirts with pleats, gathers, or silts to allow motion to rule women's fashion for the first time in history.
In the 1930s, unlike the boyish 1920s dresses that concealed curves, the 1930s dresses had shapely lines and aimed to celebrate the female figure. Mid-length skirts, worn at the natural waistline, were the most popular option for bottoms. Many skirts also had a subtle high-low hemline and a defined waistline. At the start of the decade, women wore dresses that emphasized their shoulders.
The years between 1900 and 1939 represent many differences in historical events. In this time, they saw 2 world wars, the Great Depression, and the rise of the suffrage movement. Women's fashion is often said to mirror closely to the spirit of the times. This was clearly seen in the rise and fall of hemlines, color palettes, and the general relaxation of previously restricting clothing.
The 1940s for women's fashion were all about creating a certain silhouette. Women wore wide padded shoulders, shirts that were cinched at the waist, and A-line skirts that came down to the knee. Pants had a similar shape. These were worn to create an hourglass illusion to the body. Broad shoulders, tiny waists, and full hips were desired. Clothes were designed to help you achieve the look if your body was not naturally that shape. Women dressed smartly in the 50s. They desired looking well-groomed and tailored. A very popular style was the swing skirt, which came in many forms, including the poodle skirt and the pencil style, the object being to attain an hourglass or figure-8 body shape. This type of dress or skirt was also seen as a very provocative style. Along with all the big dresses and skirts, a girdle was a necessary part of all ensembles. Peter Pan or broad collars were also very popular in the 50s.
In the 1960s, the youth began to go against morals and manners. The hemline of dresses were raised several inches above the knee. With the rising of hemlines also came to the popularity of knee-high boots. Women's clothing was usually brightly colored with unusual styles. Some commonly worn items were bell-bottom jeans, vests, tie-dye garments. In the late 60s, flared bottom pants became very popular, which continued into the 70s. Polyester was a very common material in skirts, and they kept getting shorter.
Women were no longer embarrassed to flaunt their bodies in public. In the late 60s, the patterns became even brighter, and then fashion completely switched around and waistlines disappeared. Comfortable, flowing, and quite baggy gowns became a fad.
The 1970s were a revolutionary time period in women's fashion. During this time, women everywhere were seen wearing pants. Gender roles still played a part in wardrobe choices, but much less than the previous generations. Polyester was the material of choice for clothing. The bright colors from the 60s also carried out to the 70s.
Tight flared pants and platform shoes were very popular not only among women but also men. By the late 70s, pantsuits, leisure suits, and tracksuits were worn by many people. Women working at home often wore jeans. Every woman owned a few cowl neck sweaters, tunics, and robes were also very popular.
In the early 1980s, women were often seen wearing soft fabrics and neutral colors. Bright colors were rarely worn. Beige, tan, brown, and orange were very popular colors for clothing. Turtlenecks, scarves, and silk blouses were very popular pieces among women. Pants were also a very popular option for all women. Many different types of pants were sold. Denim jeans were very popular, coming in many styles with bleaching and dyeing. Some designer jeans started coming with holes and rips pre-cut into them. Most dress pants were high-waisted and oftentimes had pleats and a tight fit.
In the mid-80s, pop music stars started wearing a new style. Women's fashion quickly changed. Bright colors made their way into fashion and accessories, such as sunglasses, bangles, and hoop earrings. Women teased their hair, and bright neon makeup was worn.
The 1990s were not as loud as the 80s. The women of the 90s tried to take the fun attitude of the 80s and make it a little smarter and classier. Some popular clothing items were black leggings with an oversized sweater, low heel shoes, flannel shirts, denim everything, t-shirts, sweatpants, skirts, Birkenstocks, solid colors, silk shirts, turtlenecks that would go under the cardigans or sweaters, plain white keds, and army surplus clothing. Towards the end of the 90s, the 80s look was no longer wanted. Hairspray, too much makeup, and flashy clothing was seen as too 80s. Women didn't want wild patterns or colors. They wanted simple clothing with solid colors, preferably subdued.
In the 2000s, layering different clothing and mixing colors and patterns was very popular. Some popular clothing items were Ugg boots, high tops, hoodies, and skinny jeans. Shoes and boots with rounded or flat toes were also very popular. Clothing became more feminine again. There was a lot of miniskirts, shorts, distressed jeans, Burberry, hip-hop influenced pants, Daisy Dukes, polo shirts, and tank tops.
In 2015, some big trends seen are high-waisted pants and short shirts. High-waisted pants are seen as early as the 70s, but became big in the 90s. Some other fashion trends seen today that were also seen in the 90s are more dark and neutral colors, oversized sweaters, Birkenstocks, and flannels. The grunge look has become very popular. Women's fashion today also includes a lot bigger accessories that have been seen in the past, such as large necklaces, purses, and very high heels.
Fashion is a way that women express themselves and give a good impression on others. First impressions are permanent and are very important to how a person will be viewed from that moment on. Women hope to create a good one. In order to do this, they dress in a way that they want to be remembered. When a woman wants to be viewed a certain way, she is able to choose clothing that projects this image of herself.
A huge part of women's fashion is the way women like to dress up to impress themselves, not only others. They want to feel confident, which many women accomplish in what they wear and how they look. With fashion, women can highlight and show off the features they like about themselves and feel good about the way they look. Clothing is a reflection of a way a person lives. Women want to be presentable and set an example or standard for others on how to view them.